Alright, welcome back to Project Zenke Redo. In this episode, I'm actually going to take the rear suspension arms out, replace them with the ISIS Performance from Njuka Racing, plus I'm also going to change the bushings out from Energy Suspension. Now, this is the master bushing set, which comes for the pieces for the front and rear, and I'm going to use the pieces I need to change the bushings out here on the arms and the lower control arm. Let's get started. Alright, so now you can see, obviously here's the rear, the lower control arm, the upper torsion arm, camber arm, and tow arm on the back. Easiest way to do this is just going to take all those three out. It's a mixture of 17 and 19 millimeter wrenches and or sockets. Do those first, and then we'll work on the bushings, and then on the inside we'll do the rear lower control arm. So let's go ahead and get those out. Okay, now you can actually see that I do have all three arms out. And now it's time to get these bushings out. Similar to what we did on the subframe, these are going to be burned out. Just remember that you do have a drive axle right below it with a rubber boot, and you also have some other covers in there. So you got to be really careful when you're doing the heat on them. These are not directional, so once you get them hot enough, you'll actually see that the rubber will start to expand and maybe start to spill out a little bit. And then you actually hear it sizzle like it's some fajitas. Once it's that hot, these center pieces here are just going to push straight out, so you can use maybe just an extension or something you don't mind getting a little bit of rubber on. They'll push right out. At that point there, you can see there's actually a metal race holding in the bushing. You'll have to take your hacksaw, similar to what we've done before on the differential. You're going to score that, get it so it relaxes the tension on it, and then it will also push right out. And you can push those either forward or backward. They're not directional, they'll come out either way. So let me get that started. We'll get some fire on these things. We'll get them out of there. Okay, now you can see the center is actually out of the piece here. It is on a little fire, and you can see the piece. I just shove it out the back there and let it rest on the ground until it's nice and cool so I can pick it up. Once you do that with here, you'll put the flames out. It'll be a little smoky, so don't breathe that in. Then you can actually score it with a hacksaw, similar to what we did before. That way it gets the tension off. And then we'll take out the other three. So there's one. This one needs to come out, same. Two in there. And then we actually can start to work to put the arms in once the bushings are in. Okay, now you can see that there the pieces are out. Once you have them scored, you can just kind of see here, this is scored with a hacksaw. You put the blade through the center of it here, just score it back and forth. All you want to do is get this to separate here, and then you can use either a hammer and chisel or an air hammer if you have a compressor in that. Just drive it out. Once you have it out, there again you can see it's got some grease in it. This is the Energy Suspension grease that they supply to you. I recommend just using a Q-tip, dip it in there and swirl it around, get some grease. That way it can help lubricate it there. Once you have it there, the bushings themselves are very easy. Let me just take one apart here. Now with these, they're very solid. Energy Suspension recommends taking the whole axle out and actually using a hydraulic press. I'm just too lazy and don't have the tools, so I'm actually going to take a straight edge pair of tin snips. I'm actually going to cut through this here. Once you can then put it, kind of squeeze one end inside of itself, feed it through, and then I'll show you how with a 8-inch vice grip or a clamp how to put them in. Okay, now you can see that I actually have taken the bushing and used my set of straight tin snips, just cut an edge. And the reason I use straight tin snips, it'll give you a very clean cut edge. You won't have to worry about the bushing being jagged or anything. It won't wear funny. Once it's in there, it's a core of a kind of a Q shape or an E, however you want to look at it. Put it in there. Of course, it already has grease in there from the Q-tip before. Add grease to the center, and then you're going to add your center divider there. Okay, now once you have your spacer in, the easiest way to do this is leave the bushing hanging out 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. You're going to apply your spacer in the center, and actually I have a 6-inch clamp I picked up from Home Depot. It does have a fender washer. It's 1.5 inch diameter, just taped on the other side, so it gives me a lot of distribution of the pressure. And now all I'm going to do is use this clamp just to push the center spacer in. As the spacer goes in, it's actually going to expand out the bushing and make it fit inside the axle and get it to center itself up. Once I'm done with that, let me show you the finished product. Okay, now you can actually see that I do have all three lower arms on here. They do fit very well. I actually took the tape measure and measured them to be the same length as a factory. That way the car is not going to rub the tires, the toe will be correct, and the alignment and the camber will be the same as before. Now it's going to be on to the lower bushings, which is going to be here, 1 and 2 down there. Okay, jumping ahead here. After I actually put all the other pieces in, I actually have done the bushings on the bottom side. Now, the sleeves that come out from the lower control arm actually have a flange you see on the side here. So these are directional. You have to drive them to this sleeve to get them to come out that way. Otherwise, they are exactly the same as the upper bushings there. Now, once you have it all put back together, assembled, you can snug it down, but don't final torque it yet. Using your floor jack, you want to lift up the center of the axle. Now, if you remember way back when, actually remember I took some measurements here from the center of the tire to the lip. Now is where this is going to come back into place. So I actually have my floor jack lifted up to where the center of the axle is 12 inches from the lip of the wheel. And now that that's in laden condition where the car is going to drive at, now is when I torque the bushings. That way there's no extra pressure on the bushings. If you torque them at a smaller place and then twist them, there's always a bit of torsion on them and it makes them tend to wear faster. So once you have this done, it's time to finish it up. From that point on, make sure you clean everything up. And I'm going to degrease this after a little bit just to get it nice and clean after I've done the undercoating. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. See you next time.